All right, let's jump into looking at combining like terms and we'll discover some of the common mistakes. So in this case, we do have two like terms. How do we know that these are like terms? It really comes down to the variable, the k, right? Both of them are simply k's. It's not k squared, right? It's not k to the third. Because it's both k's, a simple way to think about it is kangaroos. If you had -6 kangaroos and you added seven kangaroos, you simply add -6 and +7, which is +1k. We don't really need this +1. We could just call it k. We don't need to state that we have 1k. We can just say k. Okay, let's look at another one here. We have now four numbers total, or four, not four numbers, four terms. And the symbol in front of the term, right? This three here, it has a negative with it. So we have to think of these as keeping the sign, whether it's positive or negative, in front of it. You can assume for the first one that this, if it has nothing in front of the n here, we can assume it's a +1, right? If we were talking about newts, you wouldn't necessarily say you have +1 newt. You would just say, I have a newt. That's why we just say n rather than +1n. But it helps with the math. So we have to ask ourselves, which terms are common? Well, we have a couple numbers that don't have any variables. So those are common. Any numbers that don't have variables with them, you can combine those. And then we have two terms that just have n's. They're not n squared, they're not n cubed, just n's. So let's first combine our -10 with our +3. So a -10 and a -3 is -13. And if you're having a difficult time adding and subtracting positive numbers, you can see my video on adding and subtracting positive numbers. So next, let's look at the 9n. We have a +9n, and we have 1n, or a +1n. So if we had 1 newt and we added 9 newts, how many newts would we have? We would have 10 newts. So now we have combined both pairs, and we are done. So this one is a common mistake here, recognizing I'm going to rewrite this and say, you know what? A -r, that's the same as -1r. You can simply write it as a -1r minus 10 r's. So if we had -1, these are like terms, right? Because have both of them have an r, and the r is not squared, it's just a plain r, which makes them like. In this case, we can say a -1r and a -10r. Well, that's a total of -11 r's. Let's see if we can find one a little bit more complicated down at the bottom here. So here we have 1. We can call this a +12r. We have a +5. We have a +3r and a -5. So we can always combine numbers that don't have variables with numbers that don't have variables. And these two have r's with them. So we can combine them. Maybe they're rainbows. We don't know what the r is. That's the nature of a variable. We don't know what it is that we're talking about. So let's start with the numbers. We have a +5 and a -5. What is +5 and -5? Well, that would be 0. Right? A +5 and a -5 is 0. And if we had 12 rainbows and we added 3 rainbows, we'd have 15 rainbows. We don't really need this 0 at the end, so we can just say our final answer is 15R.